everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Danna Wilberg. Well, we're starting out a brand new year. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope it's blessed with everything that your heart desires. And tonight we're going to be talking with Reverend Christopher Robert Taylor, and he's here to share his expertise on the Mayan calendar and also what's coming up astrologically for 2011. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me here. It's great to start out the new year. Nice forecast, a nice outlook at things to come.
Well, we're excited. This is going to be a good year. I just have that feeling.
You're right on target, though. I think, especially when we compare it to 2010. I think when we do a comparison, I'll talk about it a little bit more here. But there's a much more outward motion with this year, much more rapid kind of growth experience, whereas 2010 was relatively restrictive.
Yeah.
A lot of learning, a lot of letting go, a lot of getting through things. You know, the school of hard knocks, I would say 2010. I think a lot of people had that kind of experience.
Yeah, it was a kind of a crummy year for a lot of people, but things are looking better, you're saying then, right?
Things are starting to turn around. It's gonna be a little bit of an overlap. You know, it's not a cut and dry thing that, oh great, it's 2011 now, so it's all over.
Yeah.
But you're definitely going to start noticing this rapid acceleration.
Great. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, before you start getting into telling us all about the shifts and the changes that are going on this year, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, my name is Chris Taylor, or like you said, Reverend Christopher Robert Taylor. It's kind of the full name there. But I have been an astrologer for the past few years now. I've been into astrology for about a decade or so, back to about 2000, when I got into it kind of privately on my own, like most people start out. And over time, I got really into it. And I started to really pull charts every time I got a chance. Every time I met someone, I want to know their birthday, you know. And then once I got their birthday, it would be like, okay, this is going to be the chart that proves it wrong. You know, this is the one. I was just waiting for that moment where it's all going to be wrong. You know, later come to find out, yes, you know, my double Virgo, part of my makeup, you know, that skeptic, that person that's always trying to put things into logic and everything else. But over time, I got so into it that, you know, eventually it just started coming through me in a lot of ways. A lot of the information, I didn't know how far into it I had gotten until I actually met an astrologer a few years back, and she told me, you know, you're ready to go. And at the time, I was like, how can I say I'm an astrologer? How do you make that leap from someone who's interested in astrology to someone who is now giving people advice based on astrology? And I had to just take that kind of leap on my own to get there.
So there's a lot of studying that goes on to be able to decipher a chart and to put that information to somebody. But how much of it is your own intuition and your own talents and gifts and psychic ability? That's
a really good question, because you can strain and stress your whole life, and astrology will never run out of things to, you know, you can never learn enough in astrology. There's always more, there's always way more than you can ever put in your head. And so people will get hung up on the left brain side of things, where, just like school, where it's like, can I graduate yet? You know, have I done enough to graduate? And I think you just have to at some point say, what information am I getting? Is it valid? Is it useful? Is it beneficial to someone? And if you're at that point, then you can, I think it's safe enough to call yourself an astrologer. You're someone that can interpret the information and give someone, you know, give someone a translation of what that means for them. And if you can do that, you're an astrologer.
There you go. If you're giving accurate information, that's what counts.
Yep.
So, tell us, Christopher, what do we have to look forward to in 2011?
Okay. Well, from an astrological perspective, that's what we'll talk about first. Just looking at 2011, I just kind of introduced it a little while ago with it feeling a little bit more expansive and growth-oriented than 2010 was. In 2010, one of the most dominant planets that was kind of involved in a lot of configurations, a lot of aspects, we call it, in astrology, was Saturn. Okay, Saturn is this restrictive planet. It's all about learning. It's all about that school of hard knocks. It's all about letting go of what doesn't work anymore and sticking with what is important and finding out what's important. So in a lot of ways, 2010 has been great in retrospect, not when you're going through it. 2011, probably the main player is Jupiter. Jupiter is making aspects with, you know, in the very beginning of the year, actually just right here in the first couple days of January, Jupiter and Uranus are joining together for the third time. It started back in the spring of 2010, and this is just an expansion and opening kind of period. Then Jupiter is going to make aspects with Pluto. Is going to finish up some work with Pluto. It's going to finish up some work with Saturn. It's going to then rejoin with Pluto in a different way later on in the year, about midsummer or so. It's going to join up with Neptune, the asteroid Chiron. So you can see Jupiter is just the main player of the year. And Jupiter is all about expansion, all about growth, all about rapidness too. And so especially with the joinings with Uranus and Pluto, we're talking about major and rapid transformations. So a lot of growth going on. And Jupiter is also going to be racing through Aries here starting in late January. It's going back into Aries, and it'll race all the way through the entire sign of Aries in just a few months. And it'll be in Taurus by June. And so Aries is that starting point of the zodiac. It's where things are initiating. It's the beginning point. You know, it's the alpha.
I'm an Aries.
Yeah, there you go. And so you're going to really feel this Jupiter kind of whipping through your sun sign.
Great.
Here, especially
I got my glasses ready.
Winter and spring. It's going to be, you're going to really feel this accelerated push through, and a lot of things in life are just going to be, you know, in fifth gear pretty much. And that's the way this year is really going on an astrological level. We can get into more specifics, but that's a good generalization of the year. It's just that rapid expansion. And it's just interesting to note how it lines up, how this expansion and this rapid kind of tune-up, how it lines up with the Mayan calendar. Okay, and so with the Mayan calendar, everyone you hear now is, you know, Mayan calendar 2012, 2012. What's going to happen? And the interesting thing is with the work of Carl Kalman and Ian Lungold, which is what I focus on when I do some of my talks that I do. I do a class where I talk about the Mayan calendar. And I go through the different calendars, because really it's multiple calendars. It's not just one. There's several calendars. There's one in particular that deals with the Underworlds. And that's the lesser known calendar. And it's represented by this kind of 9-level pyramid, okay, where each of these levels represents a different cycle of essentially consciousness. So you're coming to a new level of consciousness as you raise each level. And there's a timeline associated with each of these. Okay, so the lowest level, the timeline starts at like 16.5 billion years ago. Okay?
Wow.
And it ends, you know, right into our current time here. And the level up from that starts quite a bit, you know, sooner than that. And the point is, each level starts much, much later than the level before it. But the speed through which you go through that level is 20 times greater than the one before. So that level that started 16.5 billion years ago took all this time to get here, 16.5 billion years. The very last level, the 9th level, doesn't even start until March of 2011. And we'll whip through that in about 7 months.
Oh my goodness.
So this is what I mean by acceleration.
Okay.
Okay. And so we've just entered the last phase of the 8th level, the one before the last level, just here in November, just a couple months ago. And that signifies kind of almost like opening up, okay, you know, now we have one more set of circumstances to get through, one more set of consciousness raising awareness to get through before we end it all. And the ending date for all of those levels is actually October 28th, 2011. It's not December 21st, 2012.
Oh,
okay?
Great.
Yeah, so it's a little bit sooner than you thought. But the whole point is this, you know, we can get into super detail with this calendar. I go in a 2-hour talk on this. But the main point of this calendar is that it's not tracking commerce like the Gregorian calendar tracks. The Gregorian calendar is designed to track agriculture, taxes, and things like that, and that's what we go by. But this calendar was tracking, you know, one thing specifically, and that's the development of consciousness, okay, or the creation, essentially. And so when it's over, it doesn't mean the world is over. It means creation is over. It means that we've become fully conscious. And when we look at the different levels and what they represent, like the lowest level is a cellular cycle. So by the end of that cycle, the first cells were formed, okay? And we get through each cycle, it's a higher level of consciousness. We go from like cells to complex living organisms to families of organisms, you know, tribes, to nations. Then there's like a planetary level, okay? And then that's, when we got to the end of that level, it's really interesting because we entered the last stage of that level in 1992. And that's when the internet came out. So we reached this planetary consciousness, okay? And the most recent level that we just finished was the galactic level of consciousness. And I found it very interesting to note that within like 3 days of entering this, that Hadron Collider, where they were reconstructing the Big Bang in a lab, it finally worked. They've been trying to get this thing to work for years, and it's always something is always broken down. And it finally worked. They finally got some results about 3 or 4 days into this galactic awareness. So, and the whole point of that experiment is to get more understanding about what's beyond us, what's beyond our solar system, what's in our galaxy. And this last level is this universal level. So it's like the oneness, the co-creation. And when we get through this level, it's going to be really quick. You know, we're talking about 7 months of up and down, accelerated learning, accelerated information coming in. It's gonna be a wild time here in 2011. There's gonna be a lot of people asking questions, a lot of what is going on, what is happening. It's like the train is just moving and it's going faster and faster and faster. And if we try to slow it down to the levels we're used to, it's not gonna work. It's like it's got a one-way, it's a one-way ticket and there's no going back.
That's incredible. And if you really stop and think about how things have escalated in the last couple years, even in the last year with technology, it's phenomenal. It's really phenomenal. And it just keeps going at warp speed. So you're saying that it's all going to come to like a head, or is it going to reach a point where everybody is really tapped in and understanding what the technology is all about, what things are all about?
I think it's going to be a situation, especially when we look at it astrologically, it's going to be a situation where spiritual awareness, or the awareness of that scientific explanation of spirit, is going to come in to the mainstream. It's accelerating in the realms where I work with people, you know, doing fairs and things, and we're already there. We already get it. We already see how things work that are hard to explain, you know, when it comes to energy work and things like that. There's going to be an ability to see how it works. And it's going to shoot through the mainstream. And so, you know, the medical field is going to be hit by this. You know, think of all the major components of our society. They're just going to be hit fast by this realization and multiple realizations. And it's going to put us in a position where it's like, you know, once you know, you can't go back. It's like, you know, once you mature to a certain level, you can't really, you can fake it and go back down, but you really can't. You kind of already passed the threshold. And that's what we're going to be faced with, is what do we do with this now that we're here?
That's going to be interesting. So what does this mean, like, politically? Do you have any input on that?
That's a good question. I think, look at it economically, at least, from a situation like that. I think we're entering into this new economy that people are starting to get aware of, and it requires a breakdown of the old economy, of course. And a lot of the last couple of years has been this breakdown. The next couple of years is about the build-up of the new economy. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of the old economy, it looks like it's all falling apart. If you look at it from the perspective of the new economy, it looks like everything's coming together. So it really is about who is creating that conscious experience. And that's what this whole phase is about this year, is becoming aware that we are creating everything. And once we have that awareness, what do we do with that? Because now we can create the end of the world if we want. You know what I mean? Or we can create the beginning of the world, which is really what the intent is of this. When creation is complete, what do you do next? Right? And that's kind of what we're faced with here. 2012 is going to be a year of what do we do with this? Not a year of this is the end. But what do we do with what we know now?
So what is your take on that?
I think it's going to kind of split off a little bit. Astrologically, we have Pluto, Uranus going to be in a square. When they were conjunct in the 1960s, this kind of set off a new cycle. 1960s was not a quiet time. This is a time of upheaval, societal realizations in a lot of ways. That whole energy is coming back 2012, 2015, that 3-year time period, when Pluto and Uranus are in a square. And that's going to create this real split. Okay? So what we get through in 2011, that rapid increase in knowledge, that's going to filter in. And some people, it's going to take longer to filter in. But it's going to be here, is the point. And 2012 to 2015 is trying to implement that. And we'll see people trying to implement it in very positive ways and then implementing it in very negative ways, all at the same time. I think we're going to see that.
That's fantastic. So let's back up a little bit about in 2010, there was a split between Venus and Mars, and there's a lot of relationship problems going on in that time period. What is going to happen in that realm? Our relationships, and everybody wants to know about relationships and love.
It's a great question, perfect question for this year coming up too, because Saturn is in Libra the whole year. Okay, Saturn has been in Libra for a good chunk of 2010.
So what does that mean, though?
Saturn, again, is that school of hard knocks kind of planet.
Okay.
It's about getting serious, getting down to the brass tracks, and working on things. Libra is about relationships. It's about relating. It's about equality. It's about harmony. Okay. When Saturn's in Libra, it's a time to restructure harmony, or our idea of harmony. I think what's really happening now is that people are really ridding themselves of codependency and becoming these kind of sovereign whole beings. That's a big part of what 2011 is about too. As we get these new realizations, we realize that, we are all whole. We don't have to get something from someone else to complete us, but we're whole. And that's that Saturn Libra experience. That's the highest experience of Saturn Libra, is coming to that realization that I am separate and we can share, but we don't have to give up anything. We don't have to get from someone to complete ourselves. And that's that sovereign harmony, I guess is what you call it. That's what Saturn Libra, the most positive side of Saturn Libra can be. And by the end of 2011, we're gonna, and actually that'll actually get us to the end of 2012, Saturn Libra. So it's a long period of time where Saturn's in Libra, but by the time we get through that, the idea of relationships can be very different. So that means business relationships, marriages, very different concepts are starting to emerge that are much more functional and that don't leave people staying in energies that don't work for them just to hold on to something or to someone.
Great. That's very interesting. So we're under the assumption that they talk about 2012 as being the end, and you're saying that it's actually more of the beginning. So where do we go from there once that that myth is dispelled?
Yeah, once we get there, I think there's going to be some disappointed people that their bunker was a waste of money and time, and that they spend so much time worrying about this end that doesn't come. Astrologically, all these outer planets, these planets that are dealing with the major transformations on many levels, are in the cardinal signs of Aries, Capricorn, and Libra. Like I said, Saturn in Libra. We have Pluto in Capricorn. We have Uranus and Jupiter in Aries. These are the signs that deal with beginnings. There's nothing to do with endings here.
Great.
This is all about where we're starting from. Okay, the last time Pluto was in Capricorn was 1762 to 1778, which was the American Revolution. Okay, and it's in Capricorn from 2008 until 2024. So this time period is going to mirror that in a lot of ways. It's a beginning. It's the next level for humanity, where the United States was formed. That was the first time ever, the first concept of this on the planet. There was democracy before and everything, but there was this concept of total freedom didn't exist before. And what's the new concept developing? I don't know yet. We don't have to know yet. And it's interesting to note the time before that, in the early 1500s, was when Pluto was in Capricorn, and that was the Protestant Reformation. That's when Martin Luther pinned the notes on the church and everything else. So these aren't small periods of time, or insignificant periods of time, I should say. They've proven to be very significant. But now we have these other things that are going on in cardinal signs, and it really is adding up to like this new beginning. There's nothing astrologically to indicate endings, only beginnings, only moving forward.
That's exciting, very exciting. So what else do you have to tell us about what's going to be going on this year astrologically?
Well, I could get a little bit more specific about timing of a few things going on. Like there's some things finishing up from 2010 in the first couple of months. Like I mentioned before, the Uranus-Jupiter here in early January, that's ending a cycle that started in April. And it's really a cycle about kind of bursting forth onto the scene, things that weren't around before. And we'll even if we haven't noticed it right about now, we might think, well, what's the big things that have come on board? In the next few months, we'll look in retrospect and realize, wow, look at the advances that have happened scientifically and things like that. Another thing that's finishing up is coming up here in late February is Jupiter and Pluto. When Jupiter and Pluto get together, they're in a square this time around. When they get together, it can be transformations that are expansive and almost, out of control expansion in a lot of ways. And there can be, the sense of things growing too fast. And so we've been in that as well since about the summertime or so, like spring or summer. And so that will be showing itself as far as what the fruition of that is. A lot of times it's hard to see what these are until they're over. It really is fascinating to say, all right, nothing's happening, and then as soon as it's over, you're like, oh, there it was, and then Jupiter's going to finish up with Saturn. This is going to be like the kind of cork that pops off and lets that really get accelerated. Is in around March. Okay, March is when the last level of the universal cycle for the Mayan calendar starts, and it's when Jupiter and Saturn will release finally. It's kind of late March, early April for that. And so when that Saturn finally releases, it's almost like now growth represented by Jupiter can really just take off. Okay, so Saturn is still kind of honing in the growth a little bit, still holding it back, holding it back. Once we enter March, April, this spring is gonna be a noticeable acceleration where things just start to really and take off.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, have there been any other calendars that have been developed since these? You mentioned the Mayan calendar and a couple of the others. Have there been any more theories or calendars that have been developed since these?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of different calendars and ways of measuring time. In a lot of ways, like I don't know if you're familiar with like Terence McKenna. He did the I Ching. He looked at it. I can't speak to exactly what he did with it, but he did some analyzation of the I Ching, and he came out with this kind of time wave, and how he figured out that time, or that events happen in shorter amounts of time as time goes on. So there's time acceleration. There's a time compression is the way you look at it. So there's more and more going on in less time, which is what the Mayan calendar is showing as well.
Right.
That as we get each level, we have more and more going on in less time. So that's an approach to, I guess, measuring time that's not really a calendar. I guess it could be, depending on how you look at it, but it's not a calendar like we think of in our Gregorian calendar kind of sense, where we have our months and things like that. But, people have always been measuring time.
Well, it seems like it's going a lot faster, so I'm wondering, who's keeping track of all this, and, when are we going to have something that's going to reflect these changes? Is there going to be a new type of calendar? Will that be what's going to happen in 2012?
That would be great. I think it's time to incorporate
It'll be an
measurements
app
of other kinds of, other ways of looking at time other than just the commerce.
There you go.
And that's, it wasn't just the Mayans. I mean, every indigenous culture had multiple calendars. They all had a commerce calendar that was pretty much identical to our only calendar that we know of. But that was purely for tracking when to harvest, when to plant, and things like that, which are very practical and useful when you have large groups of people you need to feed and things like that. But they had other calendars that they used to track spiritual development. They used to the Mayans named their children after what day they were born in the Zolkin calendar, which is a 260-day calendar. It's 20 aspects and 13 intentions. Whatever day you were born on, that aspect would be part of your name.
Wow.
And people would have an idea of what your intention is for this life.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we have to read your information before we run out of time here. So why don't you tell everybody who you are, how they can reach you, and about the readings that you do at Planet Earth Rising.
It's myastrochrist.com, www.myastrochrist.com, all one word. That's my website. You can contact me through there, or you can contact me directly by email at myastrochrist@yahoo.com. My phone number is toll-free, 877-202-2664. And I do readings at different fairs around, like Planet Earth Rising has fairs on the first and third Saturday of every month. And I'm there some of those Saturdays, not all of them, giving some mini versions of astrological readings. I do full readings, though, with clients as well. I like to do relationship readings, individual readings, whatever it may be. But yeah, myastrochrist.com is probably the best place to get a hold of me.
Great. Well, thank you. And you're watching The Paranormal Connection, and we air the first and third Mondays of each month. Sometimes we have extra shows, so you have to kind of get on our mailing list so you can keep in the loop. You can go to accesssacramento.org, watch us online. My blog is paranormalconnection-donna-blogspot.com, and I post all the information of upcoming guests, and you can also look up anybody who's been on the show. Let's see, what else? Oh, Facebook. Come and join us on Facebook. We'd love to have you as a fan. So that's all our information. We've got maybe a minute here. Any parting words for...
Parting words, one thing I would say is, try not to hold on too tight this year, because going with it is going to help ease the situation a lot more than trying to prevent and to resist what's happening this year. This year's about letting it go. 2010 was hard. We're trying to cling to things. 2011 won't let us cling to things.
Okay.
So just let them go and move forward.
That's great advice. Well, thank you very much for coming on tonight, and Happy New Year to you, and hopefully people will come out and see you at one of your venues. Planet Earth Rising is always a pleasant place to be. Nice atmosphere.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you. All righty, everybody. Well, I hope, like I said, hope you're very blessed this year, and keep it moving forward. Thank you to my fabulous crew, Greg and Lisa, and Marge, Tony, and Dan. I hope I didn't forget anybody. Who am I missing? I got everybody good. Noreen, we miss you. Eric, we miss you. There's a couple of our crew that's not here tonight. So anyway, Happy New Year, everybody, and God bless.